The Seattle morning was damp, the kind of gray that clung to your skin and made every surface gleam with a thin layer of mist. Marcus Ellison pulled his dark gray Tesla into the parking garage of Horizon Innovations, a tech firm nestled in the heart of the city's bustling tech district. The dashboard clock glowed 8:45 a.m. Marcus, 47, was no stranger to early starts. As chief operating officer, he oversaw operations for Horizon's West Coast division, a role he'd earned through 20 years of grit, late nights, and a knack for seeing what others missed. Today, he wasn't on the schedule. He preferred it that way. Unannounced visits revealed the pulse of a workplace, unfiltered by polished presentations or rehearsed smiles. Dressed in a black hoodie, jeans, and worn-in sneakers, Marcus looked more like a senior developer than a C-suite executive. His employee badge was tucked into his messenger bag, a habit from years of wanting to blend in rather than stand out. He stepped out of the car, the faint hum of the garage's fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. The new office, a sleek glass and steel structure, was still in its soft launch phase, with teams transitioning from remote work to in-person. Marcus wanted to see how the culture was settling, how people collaborated, how they treated each other when they thought no one important was watching. As he approached the lobby entrance, a woman in her early 40s stood near the glass doors, her posture rigid, a tablet in one hand and a lanyard with a bright blue Horizon badge dangling from her neck. Her name tag read Claire Hensley, facilities coordinator. Her auburn hair was pulled into a tight bun, and her eyes scanned Marcus as he approached, narrowing slightly. "Excuse me," Claire said, her voice clipped but professional. "Can I see your ID? This is a secure building." Marcus paused, his hand halfway to his bag. He'd been to dozens of Horizon sites over the years, from San Francisco to Portland, and he'd rarely been stopped like this. "I'm with corporate," he said evenly, "just doing a walkthrough." Claire's lips pressed into a thin line. "I'm sorry, but everyone needs to show ID. It's policy for non-employees or anyone not on the pre-approved list." She tapped her tablet, as if checking for his name. "I don't have any corporate visits scheduled today." Marcus tilted his head, studying her. She wasn't wrong. Security protocols were tight, especially in a building still under partial construction. But her tone carried an edge, a certainty that didn't quite match the situation. "I'm Marcus Ellison," he said, keeping his voice steady. "I oversee operations for this region. I don't always send notice." Claire's eyes flicked up, then back to her tablet. "I'd still need to verify that. Can you show me your badge?" Her words were polite, but her stance, feet planted, shoulders squared, suggested she wasn't budging. A few employees passing through the lobby glanced over, their steps slowing. The air felt heavier, like the mist outside had slipped indoors. Marcus could have reached for his badge. It was right there, in the side pocket of his bag. But something made him pause. He'd been here before. Not this building, not this woman, but this moment. The assumption, the unspoken question of whether he belonged. "You're new here, aren't you?" he asked, his tone neutral, but his eyes locked on hers. "I've been here 3 weeks," Claire replied, her voice tightening. "Long enough to know we don't let just anyone walk in without clearance." She glanced at a security guard nearby, who was watching, but hadn't stepped in. "I'm going to call my supervisor to confirm." "Go ahead," Marcus said, stepping aside. He leaned against the glass wall, arms crossed, and watched as she dialed. The lobby was quiet except for the faint clack of keyboards from the open-plan office beyond. A young woman with a headset paused near the coffee station, her eyes darting toward them before she looked away. Claire's call connected. "Hey, Jenna, yeah, I've got someone claiming to be from corporate, but he's not on the list. Marcus Ellison says he's doing a walkthrough." A pause. Claire's face shifted, first confusion, then a flicker of something else, embarrassment. "Maybe." She lowered the phone. "Jenna's coming down." Marcus nodded, saying nothing. He was in system, didn't move. A minute later, Jenna Ruiz, the office manager, hurried into the lobby, her expression a mix of concern and urgency. She spotted Marcus and broke into a wide smile. "Marcus, I didn't know you were coming today." She turned to Claire, her tone gentle but firm. "Claire, this is Marcus Ellison, our coup." He's not on the visitor list because he doesn't need to be. Claire's face flushed, her tablet slipping slightly in her grip. I didn't realize. I'm so sorry. Mr. Ellison, I was just following protocol. No harm done, Marcus said. His voice calm but carrying weight. I appreciate diligence. Just make sure it's applied evenly. He gave her a small nod, then turned to Jenna. Mind showing me around, as Jenna led him toward the main office. Marcus felt the weight of Claire's gaze on his back. The encounter wasn't loud, wasn't dramatic, but it lingered like a bruise. He'd seen that look before, the one that said he didn't fit the mold of executive. Not because of his clothes, not entirely. It was something deeper, something he'd navigated his whole career. But today, he wasn't angry. He was tired. Tired of proving he belonged in spaces he'd built. The office was a hive of activity coders tapping away. Project managers huddled around whiteboards, the hum of collaboration filling the air. Jenna walked him through the new agile workspaces, pointing out the ergonomic chairs and smart lighting. Marcus listened, nodding, but his mind was still on Claire. Not her specifically, but what she represented. A reflex, a blind spot. He'd seen it in boardrooms, on job sites, even in his own company. The assumption that authority had a certain look, a certain sound. They passed a group of developers, one of whom a young man with dreadlocks and a Horizon t-shirt gave Marcus a quick nod. Marcus returned it, catching the faintest flicker of recognition in the man's eyes. He knew, maybe not the details, but he'd seen enough to understand the subtext of what had just happened. Everything's on track, Jenna was saying, pulling up a project timeline on her tablet. We're hitting 90% of our sprint goals, and the new AI module is ahead of schedule. Good to hear, Marcus said, jotting a note on his phone. How's the team settling in? Pretty well, Jenna said. A few hiccups with the hybrid model, but we're figuring it out. Claire's been a godsend with logistics, organizing the move, setting up security protocols. She's thorough. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Thorough's good, long as it doesn't turn into a gatekeeping contest. Jenna winced slightly. She's still learning the ropes. I'll talk to her. Don't, Marcus said, his voice low. Not yet. Let her sit with it. Jenna nodded, understanding. They continued the tour, but Marcus's thoughts kept circling back. Claire hadn't meant to offend. She'd been doing her job. But that was the problem. The job wasn't the issue. The lens she saw it through was. And that lens wasn't just hers. It was baked into the system, into the way people moved through the world without questioning why they stopped some and waved others through. By the time they reached the server room, Marcus had made up his mind. He wouldn't let this slide, not out of anger, but because silence bred complacency. He'd seen it too many times. Small moments like this, left unchecked, became patterns, and patterns became culture. Claire Hensley sat at her desk, the hum of the office fading into a dull roar in her ears. Her tablet lay face down, the screen dark. She hadn't touched it since the incident in the lobby. Her coffee mug sat cold on the desk, a faint ring of condensation pooling beneath it. She kept replaying the moment Marcus stepping out of his car. Her voice sharp and certain, the way his calm gaze had cut through her like a blade. She hadn't meant to offend him. She was just doing her job. Wasn't she? But the look on his face, the quiet weight of his words, make sure it's applied evenly, had stuck with her. She'd apologized, but it felt hollow, like a reflex. She hadn't known who he was. That was the truth. But the deeper truth, the one she couldn't shake, was that she wouldn't have stopped Jenna the same way. Or Tom, the CEO, with his pressed suits and easy grin. Why? Claire leaned back in her chair, staring at the ceiling. She'd been proud of her new role at Horizon, 3 weeks in, and she'd already streamlined the badge system, organized the supply chain for office equipment, and set up a visitor log that even Jenna had praised. She was good at her job, better than good. But today, she'd misstepped, and not in a way that could be fixed with a quick email or a revised checklist. She opened her tablet and pulled up the employee handbook, page 17, security protocols. All visitors and non-registered personnel must present valid identification. She'd followed the rules, so why did it feel like she'd broken something bigger? Her phone buzzed, a text from her sister Emily, Back in Tacoma. How's the new gig? You ruling the roost yet? Claire stared at the message, her thumbs hovering over the keyboard. She wanted to type something light, something normal, but her fingers wouldn't move. Instead, she set the phone down and opened her email. There it was, a meeting invite from Maureen Patel, HR Director, for tomorrow morning. Subject, incident review. Claire's stomach twisted. She wasn't getting fired, she knew that. Horizon wasn't that kind of company. But the meeting wasn't about paperwork or protocol. It was about her, about what she'd done and why. She thought back to her training, the online modules on diversity and inclusion. She'd clicked through them, answered the quizzes, gotten her certificate. She'd thought she got it, but today proved she didn't. She stood and walked to the break room, needing air, needing space. The room was empty except for a young developer, Jamal Carter, pouring himself a coffee. He glanced up, gave her a polite nod, and went back to his phone. Claire hesitated, then spoke. Jamal, can I ask you something? He looked up, surprised. Sure, when you started here, did anyone ever make you feel like you didn't belong? The question came out clumsier than she'd meant, but she couldn't take it back. Jamal's expression shifted, his easy smile fading. You mean like getting carded at your own workplace? He said it lightly, but there was an edge to his voice. Claire's face burned. I didn't mean I messed up today. With Mr. Ellison. I didn't know who he was, and you asked for his ID. Jamal finished, his tone neutral. Yeah, I heard. Claire swallowed. I was just following protocol. Jamal took a sip of his coffee, studying her. Protocols. A tool, it's not a personality. You decide how to use it. She nodded, her throat tight. I didn't mean to. I don't know what I meant. Jamal set his mug down. Look, Claire, I don't think you meant harm, but intense. Only half the equation. Impact matters more. You made a call based on what you saw, and what you saw didn't add up to coup in your head. That's the part you need to unpack. Claire stared at the floor, her mind racing. She wanted to argue, to say it wasn't about race, that she'd have stopped anyone she didn't recognize, but the words felt hollow even in her head. How do I fix it? She asked quietly. Jamal shrugged. Start by asking yourself why you made that call. Not the rule book answer, the real one. Then, talk to him. Not to apologize again, but to listen. Claire nodded, her chest heavy. She thanked him and walked back to her desk, her mind a tangle of guilt and clarity. She'd always thought of herself as fair, as someone who saw people for who they were. But today, she'd seen Marcus through a filter she hadn't even known she had. And that scared her more than any HR meeting ever could. Marcus sat in the glass-walled conference room on the 5th floor. A stack of project reports spread out before him. The view of Puget Sound was obscured by clouds, but the room felt bright, almost too bright. He'd spent the morning reviewing the Seattle office's progress, but his mind kept drifting to Claire. Not because he was angry, he wasn't. He'd been through too many moments like this to let anger take root, but he was determined to turn it into something useful. Maureen Patel knocked lightly before entering, her notepad in hand. Morning, Marcus. Thanks for making time. Always, he said, gesturing to the chair across from him. You read my report? Maureen nodded, sitting down. I did, and I spoke with Claire yesterday. She's shaken. Wants to make this right. Marcus leaned back, his fingers steepled. Good. But making it right isn't about apologies. It's about understanding. Maureen nodded, jotting a note. She's new, but she's sharp. I don't think she meant to single you out. I know she didn't, Marcus said. That's the problem. It wasn't intentional. It was instinct. And instincts like that don't change with a memo or a training video. Maureen set her pen down. What do you want to see happen here? Marcus took a breath, choosing his words carefully. I want her to think, not just about me, but about why she assumed what she did. I want her to question her reflexes. And I want the company to stop pretending these moments are one-offs. They're not. They're part of a pattern. Maureen nodded slowly. We can roll out new training modules, bias recognition, cultural competence. But you're right. It's not enough. We need to change how people see leadership. Exactly, Marcus said. Leadership isn't a face or a suit. It's action, results. But too many people still expect it to look a certain way. We need to break that. Maureen scribbled another note. I'll work with Claire one-on-one. Not disciplinary developmental. We'll dig into her thought process. Get her to confront her assumptions. And I'll propose a company-wide workshop. Mandatory, not optional. Marcus nodded. Make it practical, no fluff. People need to see themselves in these scenarios, not just point fingers. The door opened, and Claire stepped in, her face pale but composed. Mr. Ellison, Miss Patel. I asked to join you. Marcus raised an eyebrow but nodded. Have a seat. Claire sat, her hands clasped tightly. I owe you more than an apology, she said, her voice steady but soft. I messed up, not because I didn't know you, but because I assumed you weren't you. I've been thinking about why, and I don't like the answers. Marcus studied her, his expression unreadable. What answers? Claire took a breath. I saw you, your clothes, your car, the way you carried yourself, and I didn't think executive. I thought, I don't know, consultant, maybe. Vendor, someone who needed to prove they belonged. I didn't stop to question it. I just acted. And I wouldn't have done that with someone else. Marcus nodded slowly. You're honest. That's a start. I want to do better, Claire said. Not just for you, but for everyone. I don't want to be the person who makes someone feel out of place ever again. Marcus leaned forward. Then don't just feel bad. Learn. Ask yourself why you saw me that way. Ask why you didn't. Question Jenna or Tom the same way. And don't stop at the easy answers. Claire nodded, her eyes glistening. I will, and I'd like to make this a learning moment for the team. If you're okay with it. Not about you specifically, but about how we all make snap judgments. Marcus exchanged a glance with Maureen. That's a good idea, he said. But it starts with you. Lead by example. Claire nodded, resolute. I will. 3 months later, the Seattle office buzzed with a different kind of energy. The soft launch was over, and the building was fully operational. Marcus stood in the lobby, this time in a blazer and slacks, his badge clipped to his pocket. He wasn't here to check on progress. He was here for the first company-wide bias recognition workshop, led by Claire. Claire stood at the front of the conference room, a projector screen behind her displaying a slide. Unseen assumptions, how we shape our workplace. She looked nervous but determined, her tablet replaced by a small stack of note cards. Thank you all for being here, she began, her voice steady. This isn't about pointing fingers. It's about looking inward. A few months ago, I made a mistake. I judged someone based on assumptions I didn't even know I had. I thought I was just doing my job, but I was wrong. And I want us to talk about how we can all do better. Marcus sat in the back, watching as employees leaned forward, some nodding, others scribbling notes. Claire shared her story, not naming Marcus, but describing the moment in the lobby with raw honesty. She talked about her blind spots, her guilt, and her commitment to change. She invited others to share their own experiences, creating a space for open dialogue. Jamal spoke up, sharing a story about being mistaken for an intern despite his senior role. A project manager admitted to assuming women in meetings were admins rather than engineers. The room grew quieter with each story, not out of discomfort, but out of recognition. After the workshop, Marcus caught Claire in the hallway. You did good, he said. That wasn't easy. Claire smiled faintly. It wasn't, but it felt right. I'm still learning, but I want to keep this going, make it part of our culture. Marcus nodded. You're not just checking boxes, you're building something. Keep it up. As he walked to his car, the Seattle mist had lifted, revealing a rare glimpse of sun. Marcus felt lighter, not because the problem was solved, it wasn't, but because the conversation had begun. Claire's mistake hadn't defined her. Her response to it did. And that, Marcus knew, was the first step toward real change. He drove off, the city skyline fading in his rearview mirror. The road ahead was long, but for the first time in a while, he felt like they were moving in the right direction.